My daughter said that I was a loser compared to her in-laws, so I calmly cut her off and gave my business to my son. Now she is angry and begged me to come back, but I told her next. I always knew my daughter Lauren was difficult. That's the kindest word I can use. People warned me for years that I was too soft on her, that I let her get away with things no one else would tolerate. They said she was selfish, entitled, manipulative. I said she was misunderstood. I told them she had a good heart, just hidden under layers of defensiveness. And I believed that, for longer than I probably should have. Even when she forgot my birthday 3 years in a row. Even when she didn't visit her father in the hospital until the night before he passed. Even when she called my flower shop a waste of time, because I wasn't making 6 figures. I let it slide. Because I'm her mother. Because love is supposed to be unconditional, right? Then she said it. The word that changed everything. It was during a Sunday brunch at my house. I had made waffles, fruit salad, bacon, the works. My son Kyle and his wife Jenna were there, passing orange juice back and forth and joking about how I needed to finally take that trip to Ireland I always talked about. I laughed and told them I was thinking about retiring soon. The flower shop had been my life for over 30 years, but I was tired. I wanted to see the world while I still had energy in my bones. Lauren sat across from me with that bored look on her face she wore anytime someone else was the center of attention. She was scrolling through her phone when I mentioned retirement, and I heard her say something to Adam under her breath. I didn't want to, but I asked her to repeat it. She looked up deadpan and said, "I just told Adam you're kind of a loser. Compared to his parents. They're buying a second lake house and you're over here talking about hostels in Europe like it's something to brag about. The worst part. She said it like it was nothing. Like I was being overly sensitive for reacting at all. Adam didn't say a word. Just looked at his plate. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I stood up, gathered the dishes and walked into the kitchen. For the first time in my life I felt something shift. Not anger, not even sadness. Just clarity. Brutal, cutting clarity. I had spent years nurturing a daughter who didn't respect me, who saw me as beneath her, who didn't see the life I'd built as something valuable, not even to her. 2 days later I sat down with Kyle and Jenna. I told them I was stepping away from the business. That I wanted to give it to someone who actually cared about it. Who saw it for what it was. A labor of love, not just a source of income. I told them the shop was theirs if they wanted it. Kyle was stunned. Jenna teared up. I could see they weren't just shocked, they were honored. They asked me 3 times if I was sure. I was. Lauren had made it easy for me. I didn't tell her right away. I knew she'd hear it eventually. And she did, from Adam apparently, because 2 weeks later I got a furious call. She didn't even ask if it was true, she went straight into accusations. You gave my shop to Kyle? You know his wife barely even works. You know what Adam's parents could have done with that place. You'd rather let it rot than let me have it? I hung up the phone. That week Kyle and Jenna met with a local marketing team Jenna had worked with at her last job. Within a month the shop had a fresh new look online, social media pages that actually brought in customers, and weekly bouquet features that people loved. Orders doubled. Then tripled. And that's when Lauren came back. But not with an apology. With a proposition from Adam's parents. They wanted to buy the shop. I almost laughed. But I didn't. I just told her it wasn't for sale. Not to them. Not to anyone. The shop had finally landed in the hands of someone who cherished it. I wasn't about to trade that for a check. That's when things started spiraling. Lauren couldn't let it go. Not because she wanted the shop, but because she couldn't stand losing. And she wasn't done yet. After I turned down the offer from Adam's parents, I thought maybe, just maybe, that would be the end of it. That Lauren would be furious for a while, throw a tantrum or two, then move on like she always did. But she didn't move on. She dug in. She started showing up again, acting like none of it ever happened. She brought coffee one morning and told me she was just in the neighborhood. I hadn't seen her just in the neighborhood in over a year. She looked around the shop like she owned it, complimented the new displays Jenna had put up, then said real casually, you know, it'd still make sense for me to take this over. I mean, I have better connections than Kyle and Jenna do. More business sense too. I said nothing. I let the silence answer for me. I watched her cheeks flush and her mouth tighten. She left 10 minutes later and slammed the door hard enough to shake the sign. After that, it started unraveling fast. He called me every day for a week. Half the time pretending to be friendly, half the time tearing into me. She accused me of being a traitor, of choosing the wrong child, of humiliating her in front of Adam's family. Said I had embarrassed her socially. Said I had no idea what kind of people I was messing with. Then she changed her approach. She started texting Kyle instead, trying to convince him to sell her his half. Claimed I was not in my right mind. Told him Jenna was using him, that she only wanted the business for clout. Kyle blocked her number. Next she went after Jenna. Sent her long emails about how she was in over her head and would drag the business into the ground. Jenna didn't respond, but I could tell it rattled her. She started triple-checking every decision. Woke up at night to answer emails. Cried in the break room once after a shipment came in late. So she pushed forward. He and Kyle both did. The shop was thriving. Locals were showing up in droves. The Valentine's Day campaign they ran brought in more sales in 1 week than we used to see in a month. A local news station even did a piece on the shop's revival. And that's when things really started to spiral. Lauren couldn't stand it. She started spreading stories around town. Nasty ones. Told people I'd cut her out of my will because she married into money. Told our family that Kyle threatened me, that Jenna had dirt on me, that I was under pressure to give up the shop. She even tried to say Kyle forged paperwork. I had to get a lawyer involved just to shut it down. Then came the night Adam's parents showed up at my door. Uninvited. I hadn't seen them in nearly a year, and suddenly they were standing on my porch with gift bags and forced smiles. They said they just wanted to talk like adults. They said they didn't want things to be ugly. They offered to buy the shop again, this time for double what it was worth. Claimed it was a family investment, that it would bring everyone back together. I told them the shop wasn't for sale and it never would be. Not to them. Not to anyone. They left polite. But I could see it. Like they were used to getting what they wanted and didn't know what to do when money didn't work. After that, Lauren lost whatever grip she had left. One morning, Kyle came into the shop and found the front windows shattered. Not cracked, shattered. Glass everywhere. Flower displays knocked over. One of the shelves ripped off the wall. It looked like a robbery, but nothing was taken. The register was untouched. The safe wasn't even opened. Security footage showed a woman in a hoodie and gloves. Face hidden. But the build? The shoes? The way she walked? I didn't even have to guess. Lauren had always been careless when she was angry. The police said they couldn't confirm identity from the footage. Kyle wanted to press charges anyway, but I told him to wait. Just a little longer. I had something else in mind. Something Lauren wouldn't see coming. The next morning I got in my car and drove straight to her house. I wasn't going to text. I wasn't going to knock. I was going to do exactly what she never expected me to do. Make her answer for it. And what happened at her doorstep that morning changed everything. I didn't text. I didn't call. I didn't warn her I was coming. I got in my car early that morning, still in my coat from walking to the shop to see the glass all over the sidewalk, and drove straight to her house. No makeup. No plan. Just clarity. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Adam's car was gone. Just hers. I rang the bell and waited. She opened the door in a silk robe, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. The look on her face when she saw me, surprise, then annoyance, then something else. Guilt maybe. Or fear. Hard to tell. I asked one question. Did you do it? She didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Just gave a little smirk and said, do what? I didn't need a confession. I didn't come for that. I already knew. It was in the way her eyes darted, the way she stood just slightly behind the door, like maybe she wasn't proud of whatever part of herself had done it. I told her straight. The windows are broken. The police have the footage. Kyle and Jenna are pressing charges unless I tell them not to. But I won't be telling them anything. Because I'm done being in the middle. I'm not here to protect you anymore. She dropped the smile. Said it wasn't her. Said she had no idea what I was talking about. I let her ramble. Then I told her the rest. I said I was transferring everything, ownership, branding rights, bank accounts, over to Kyle and Jenna completely. That I was stepping away from the shop entirely. No more strings. No more safety net. I was cutting myself out of the business I built so I could finally live my life. Travel. Rest. Breathe. She looked stunned. Like the air had been knocked out of her. She actually stepped back like my words had weight. Then she caught herself and started asking questions. Why would you do that? Why no? You've been running that place your whole life. I told her the truth. Because I'd rather give it to someone who loves it than someone who thinks it's owed to them. I left her standing in the doorway with her coffee cooling in her hand. That afternoon my phone exploded. She must have spent the whole day calling anyone who'd listen. She started with family, telling them I had abandoned her, given everything to Kyle, made her look like a failure. She said I was picking favorites, that I was letting Jenna take over the family legacy. He called my sister, my cousin Gail, even my friend Lena from church. Some of them called me to ask what was going on. Some didn't. Some just listened to her and passed the gossip along. The usual. Then she called Kyle. He didn't answer. He tried Jenna. She did answer for once. And told her calmly to stop contacting her and to talk to a lawyer if she wanted to continue the conversation. That part made me proud. Over the next few days, Lauren got even messier. She posted a long rant on Facebook. Vague enough not to name us, but obvious enough that anyone with a brain knew who it was about. It was full of fake tears, half-truths, and that favorite phrase of hers, "I'm just hurt." She always used that one when she didn't get what she wanted. But the tide was turning. People weren't rushing to comfort her this time. Some commented. Some didn't. A few even messaged me privately to say they were sorry I was going through it. One woman I barely knew from the neighborhood even wrote, "We all see the difference between who shows up and who complains about not being invited." Then came the final twist I didn't expect. Lauren came to my house. She rang the bell on a Sunday evening, wearing real clothes for once, holding a tray of lemon bars from the bakery near my old shop. I hadn't seen her knock on my door in months. Not like that. I opened the door and she said she just wanted to talk. Said she'd been thinking about everything and realized she might have taken things too far. Said she was upset because she felt left behind. She didn't say sorry. Not really. But she danced around it in a way that almost sounded like an apology if you squinted. I let her speak. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. She said she missed me. Said she missed the shop. Said she wanted to be part of it again in any way I'd allow. And for a moment, just a split second, I felt that old instinct again. That part of me that wanted to say yes. To fix it. To believe she meant it. But I didn't. I told her I forgave her. That I truly hoped she found peace. That I still loved her. But that didn't mean I was going backward. She asked me what came next. I looked at her and said, "Next? I finally take that trip to Ireland. And the shop keeps growing without you." She didn't slam the door this time. She didn't scream. She just nodded, turned around and walked away. I watched her leave. And for the first time in years I didn't feel like I'd lost something. I felt free. I honestly believed the worst was over. After Lauren walked away from my house that Sunday, things went quiet. Too quiet. Weeks passed without a single text, no cryptic posts online, no family members calling to check in. I started sleeping better. I booked my Ireland trip. I even stopped by the shop less, forcing myself to let go the way I promised I would. Kyle and Jenna were thriving. The shop was booked solid through the next 2 holidays. Weddings, corporate events, subscription orders. Jenna joked that she barely had time to breathe. I told her that was a good problem to have. Then one afternoon my phone rang. It was Jenna and she didn't sound like herself. She asked me if I was sitting down. Earlier that day Adam's parents had walked into the shop. Not quietly either. Dressed like they were heading into a boardroom. They weren't alone. They brought a man with them. Mid-40s, expensive watch, leather briefcase. He introduced himself as a business advisor. They asked to speak to whoever was in charge. Jenna thought maybe they were planning a large event. She led them to the back office and offered coffee. That's when the briefcase opened. Inside were contracts, projections, a full acquisition proposal. They weren't offering to partner. They weren't offering to invest. They were offering to buy the shop outright. For an amount so high it made Jenna's head spin. 3 times what the shop had ever been valued at. Kish, cling, immediate. And then came the part that made her stomach drop. The proposal outlined a transition period, where Kyle and Jenna would stay on for appearances, then slowly be replaced. Creative control handed off. Branding refined. The shop name kept, but everything else stripped away and folded into a larger portfolio owned by Adam's father. Lauren's name was on the paperwork. Not as an owner. Not as family. As a consultant. She had gone behind all of us. Quietly. Methodically. While pretending she was done. Jenna told me she stayed calm. Thanked them. Said she would review everything with their lawyer. Walked them out with a smile and locked the door behind them. Then she went into the bathroom and cried for 5 minutes before calling me. That was the moment something in me hardened. Not anger. Not hurt. Resolve. I didn't call Lauren. I didn't text. I drove to the lawyer's office instead. By the next morning, everything changed. Our lawyer uncovered that Lauren had already been telling people she was in talks to take over the shop. She'd hinted that Kyle and Jenna were overwhelmed. That I was no longer involved because of my age. She was laying groundwork. Painting herself as the inevitable solution. So we shut it down. Completely. The cease and desist didn't just block future offers. It barred her from representing the shop in any capacity. From using its name. From implying association. From contacting Kyle or Jenna about the business at all. That evening I went to Lauren's house one last time. I handed her the envelope and waited while she read it. Her face changed as she turned each page. This wasn't something she could argue with or guilt her way out of. This was final. She asked me how I could do this to her. I told her she'd done it to herself. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just said I was done being treated like something she could step on to reach higher ground. She didn't cry. He didn't yell. He just looked small. A week later something unexpected happened. One of Adam's parents' longtime business partners pulled out of a separate deal with them. Word had gotten around. About how they tried to strong-arm a small family business. About how messy it looked. About Lauren. Money talks. And sometimes it listens too. The shop meanwhile kept growing. And Lauren? She went silent again. But this time it wasn't planning silence. It was the kind that comes when someone realizes they've lost far more than they ever expected. I wanted to believe Lauren was finished. After the cease and desist, after the failed buyout, after the quiet shame that followed, there was a stretch of time where nothing happened. No messages. No sudden appearances. No third parties calling on her behalf. I let myself think she had finally understood that she'd gone too far. That was my mistake. Kyle called me just after midnight on a Friday. I could tell from the first word something was wrong. He didn't ramble. He didn't explain slowly. He just said the shop alarm went off and the police were already there. By the time he sent me photos, my hands were shaking. 2 front windows smashed. Glass everywhere. Flower buckets knocked over. A table flipped on its side. And sprayed across the remaining glass in red paint thick enough to drip, was one word. Thief. Not random. Not vandalism for fun. A message. The register hadn't been touched. The safe was untouched. Nothing stolen. Whoever did it came for one reason only. To hurt. To accuse. To leave a mark. There were cameras, of course. Hoodie. Gloves. Face covered. Anyone else might have hesitated. I didn't. The way she moved. The way she paused before throwing the paint. I knew my daughter. Kyle wanted to press charges immediately. Jenna was crying, apologizing over and over like it was somehow her fault for succeeding. I told them both to stop. To breathe. To let me handle one thing first. The next morning I drove to Lauren's house. I didn't park down the street. I didn't wait. I walked straight up and rang the bell until she answered. When she saw me, her face strained. She tried to close the door. I stopped it with my foot. I told her I knew. I told her we had footage. I told her that this time she didn't just cross a line, she burned it to the ground. She denied it at first. Weakly. Then she switched to crying. Then anger. Then fear. All the familiar moves. But I didn't let her steer the conversation. For the first time in her life I stopped protecting her. I spoke loudly. Not screaming. Just loud enough. I said she broke into her own family's business. I said she vandalized it out of jealousy. I said she couldn't stand watching her brother and his wife build something without her. I said she chose destruction over humility. Her neighbors slowed down. One stopped walking their dog. She begged me to lower my voice. Tried to pull me inside. I didn't. I told her this was the last time I would clean up her messes. That I would not lie for her. That whatever happened next would be the result of her own actions. Then I walked away. By that afternoon word had spread. Family members who had stayed neutral suddenly weren't neutral anymore. Messages started coming in. Some apologizing to me. Some saying they finally understood. No one defended her. Not even Adam's parents. The police report was filed. Insurance handled the repairs. The windows were fixed quickly, but the community response stayed with me longer. Customers brought cards. One woman left a note that said, "We see you. Keep going." Jenna redesigned the window display after the repairs. Inside, she added a small sign near the register. It said, "Growth hurts before it heals." I didn't ask her to put it there, but I didn't ask her to remove it either. 2 weeks passed. Then one afternoon Lauren walked into the shop. No Adam. No parents. No makeup. No performance. She looked smaller somehow. Tired. Like someone who had finally run out of ways to spin the story. She stood at the counter and waited. When I came out from the back, she looked at me and said she was sorry. Not carefully. Not defensively. Just said it. She said she didn't recognize herself anymore. Said she felt like everything had slipped out of her control and she panicked. Said she ruined things she couldn't fix. For the first time I didn't hear manipulation. I heard regret. I told her I accepted her apology. Then I told her something she wasn't expecting. I said forgiveness didn't mean restoration. That loving her didn't mean handing her access to my life again. That some doors once closed stay closed even when healing begins. He asked me if this was it. I told her no. But what came next would depend entirely on what she did after she walked out that door. And this time there would be no more chances to pretend. After Lauren walked out of the flower shop that day, I stood there for a long time. I don't know what I was waiting for. Maybe a wave of relief, maybe tears, maybe that old aching guilt that always crept in after I pushed her away. But it didn't come. I just stood behind the counter, hands resting on the wood, and realized something very simple. I didn't hate her. But I didn't owe her anything either. That night, I sat outside on my back porch with a glass of tea, watching the trees sway in the dark. For once, my mind wasn't buzzing with what-ifs or half-formed comebacks. Just stillness. And underneath that stillness was a feeling I hadn't had in years. Closure. A week passed. Then I didn't hear from her. I figured she'd gone quiet again, maybe too embarrassed to try and reach out. Maybe angry all over again. Or maybe finally just sitting with what she'd done. Then one morning I opened the mailbox and found a letter. It wasn't dramatic. No tear-streaked pages, no blame shifting. Just her handwriting, careful, smaller than I remembered, and a few pages of words that felt different this time. She said she'd been talking to someone, a therapist, that she was trying to understand how she'd become the kind of person who could do what she did. She didn't excuse it. She didn't ask me to forget it. But she said she was sorry, not because she got caught, not because she lost, but because she finally understood the damage she'd done. To me, to Kyle, to herself. She admitted she had treated love like currency. That she saw everything as a transaction, including family. That somewhere along the line she decided the only way to feel valuable was to win. Even if it meant hurting the people who never stopped loving her. She ended the letter with this. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything. I just want to be different. And I wanted you to know I'm trying. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here. For once, I'll be the one waiting. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it and put it in my nightstand drawer. I didn't call her. I didn't write back. Not right away. A few weeks later, Kyle and Jenna invited me to the grand opening of the second flower shop. A new location, bigger space, more foot traffic. I walked in and saw Jenna holding a clipboard and laughing with one of the new staff members. Kyle was sweeping rose petals off the floor like he used to when he was a kid. It was everything I had dreamed of, but better. It was theirs. And I felt nothing but pride. There was a wall in the new shop, near the front, painted with soft watercolor vines and a quote beneath it. I hadn't seen it before. From broken stems, new roots grow. I didn't ask who wrote it. I already knew. A few days later, I finally wrote Lauren back. I told her I was proud of her for finally being honest. That I hoped she continued doing the work. That if she ever wanted to have a real relationship, not performative, not controlling, then yes, maybe we could start from the beginning. But I also made it clear. This wasn't a clean slate. There were things that couldn't be undone. Trust that had to be earned, not assumed. Love that would be given, but no longer at the expense of my peace. She replied with a card. Just a card. One sentence inside. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I did everything to make you. That summer I took my trip to Ireland. Alone. I walked the green hills. I stood at the edge of the cliffs of Moher. I wandered through quiet towns and smelled wildflowers growing through old stone walls. And for the first time in my adult life I felt completely untethered. I thought about my husband. I thought about the version of me that raised 2 children and ran a flower shop and always tried to keep the peace. And then I thought about the version of me that stood at Lauren's door and said enough. I returned home changed. Lauren and I don't talk often. But sometimes she sends letters. Updates. No drama. Just thoughts. She's working part-time now, volunteering at a community garden in the city. She says digging her hands into the dirt feels like therapy. I believe her. And that's enough for me. Because this story didn't end with revenge. It didn't end with bitterness. It ended with a decision. To protect myself. To pass down the right legacy. Not a business, not a brand, but a way of loving that doesn't come with conditions or control. And maybe, just maybe, to leave behind something that even broken families can grow from.